Alright folks, welcome to another edition of Lid Tips, the ham radio show where we talk about and discuss topics that are of interest to ham radio or amateur radio operators. Today's episode is our December Q&A, and this is where we take a look at questions and comments that were left on previous videos. So why don't you leave a question or a comment on this video or some of the future videos and help drive the direction of the channel. Oh, and before we get started, there's some buttons down below. A like button, a comment button, a subscribe button. Go ahead and click them. It'll make you happy. Let's get started. Okay, our first comments come from my ham radio vacation video. And Phil Duval says, it looks like you had a great trip. I'm constantly blown away by the G90, or at the G90. It's a no-hassle rig. Bill Crow says, great video, loves the G90. I'm still amazed what a wire will do. Do you like that bigger tuning knob? And I wanted to say, I'm a huge fan of the G90, $425. I talk about it on the channel all the time. You get a tremendous amount of capability. Some people will be like, oh, it's only 20 watts. I can make contacts just fine on it. The radio is easy to use. It was affordable, and it has a fantastic tuner. I'm constantly blown away by it as well. Getting it to hook up for digital modes to my Raspberry Pi requires a bird's nest of cables, and that's a little bit of a pain. But I can live with that. And I put that bigger tuning knob on there, and I love it. It makes it so much easier to dial things in. When you turn the button, your adjustments go a lot further, a lot faster. I couldn't imagine going back to the smaller knob. If anybody has a G90, I would say definitely put a bigger knob on it. Our next comment comes from the same Vacation Ham Radio video, and that's where Radio Oklahoma. He says, really cool video, man. You should spend some time explaining the propagation charts that you show. If you already have, I apologize, but it seems like it'd be a super useful tool. 73, and thanks for a great video. He's right. So we are going to do some videos on propagation, how propagation works, how you can use tools like PSK Reporter to see how well your propagation is, and we might look at some other tools too. So it's definitely on the list, Radio. We'll see when it comes out. But great comment, and I really appreciate it. Our next comment comes on the PAX100 amplifier review from Radio Oddity. And he says, thanks for the review, as I just obtained the PAX100, and I appreciate your comments along with the figures you achieved on the different bands. You know, when I take a look at the PX100, I'm kind of indecisive about that being something that I would want to use on a regular basis. One, I'm a little concerned about the spectral purity. I know it comes with the filtering kit, and that's probably something I should investigate a little bit more. Also, in the video, you'll see when I'm using that radio, my SWR kind of bounces up and down on the radio as my signal is amplified. And I worry about that. And that's obviously why they said not to use the tuner. Otherwise, your radio would constantly be tuning when your SWR goes up. So you can put a manual tuner in line after the amplifier, but before the antenna. And you can tune that way. Otherwise, you have to use a resonant antenna. I think that that's probably a project that's not fully done cooking, and you'll probably see some more updates from Radio Oddity in the future. White Buffalo, he says, thanks for the review. He looked at it on Radio Oddity, and he's been wondering about it. Did you happen to put a scope on it and check how it does as far as spurious emissions? Unfortunately, I don't have a scope, and even if I did, I'm not sure I know how to use one. I do have the Tiny SA or Tiny Spectrum Analyzer, but the power output of the amplifier is too great. I'd have to seriously attenuate the signal in order to get it in there. So I have not put it on a scope. But as I was mentioning earlier, I would suspect that the spectral purity might be a little bit of an issue, and that's why they include that filtering kit. Now, Chris Gress, he commented on that same video, and he said it may cost more, but the Zygo XPB or XPA 125B is made for Zygo radios, Zygo, if you want to be more accurate. And his built-in tuner and his amp has a lot of good protection. He got his to run on the 705, which is quite a task. Some people have told me that I should put the PAX100 on my 705, and I'm like, no, I don't want to risk anything happening to the 705. He says it works well with his 705, and it's got a manual bridge change on the amp, but he has to use the Zygo G90 band change with the Zygo G90 band changes automatically. You know, when I think about that, I don't have a problem with anybody buying the XPA and a G90 and using them together. But you start to look at, you know, $450 give or take for your G90, $500 give or take for that amp, and you're looking at $1,000. you know, at $1,000 price point, I think I would probably look at a 100-watt radio. You could look at the Icom 7100. I think it's about 850 bucks. You could take a look at the Icom 7300, which is about 1,000 even. Or you could take a look at the Yaesu 991A. All three of those radios are something I would rather have than the Zygo combination. Now I get that you could just take the Zygo out by itself, and it's a little bit lighter and a little bit more portable. But again, if for a home base station or even portable, I'm not sure I would want to lug around that amp. It's doable, and I know that people do it. By the way, Mike at K8 MRD Radio Stuff, he has a really good video on the XPA. So if you're interested in it, check that out. I don't necessarily think it's something I'm going to pursue. So John K, he commented on the WinCamp antenna mount video that I did for the Icom 705. And he said he finds the bracket to be very useful with the 705. The only downside is that the thumb screw does not have enough friction to hold the 705 at an angle. And I did have some problems with that, and I think I showed that in the video. He said the rig just flops down until I can find a better solution. He used a rubber band loop between the rig's belt slot and the back of the bracket that holds the rig snug to the bracket and keeps it at the angle. That's a pretty good idea. When I have it on my desk, I use the lock washer, and it holds it at that angle that I want, but it's not seeing a lot of action. I do think if you took this portable, it might be something that you would have to develop another solution for. Or really get one of those washers. I can't remember the name of them. It's not a lock washer, but they have like the little teeth in there. And maybe that would allow you to get that thumb screw a little bit tighter. Again, I think it's probably a better concept. The angle mount is probably a better idea on paper than it is in practice. But as far as having it work on my desk, I'm actually really happy with that. WB8CXO. He bought one, and he says he's got mixed thoughts. Well-built, flimsy application. Takes away from all the physical aesthetics of the radio. Now you have this thing hanging and flopping, and it's pricey too. It's and I mentioned in the video, I think I paid 49 bucks for it. In retrospect, I'm not sure that I would do that again. He said, try to see before you buy. And that's pretty good. So if you got a buddy who has one, maybe that's something you can check out. Again, I'm not sorry that I have it, and I do use it. But there may be better options or better solutions that are out there on the market. So try to see it before you buy. It's great advice. Dan commented on the quarter wave ground plane antenna video that I posted as part of Tube Meter Night with the YouTubers bunch. And he said he did something similar, but with a BNC coat hanger wire and Europe terminal strip connectors to attach the wires. This way he can easily change between 20 and 70 centimeters. That's a pretty good idea. Here at the Ham Shack, I have a Yaesu FT2900. It's one of the first radios that besides a Balfag, one of the first radios that I bought. Where I live, there's a number of 2-meter repeaters. This is a 2-meter only rig that does 75 watts. I was really happy I bought it. It performs great. I've had it for 5 or 6 years, give or take. It's always on and never had an issue with it. But it doesn't have 70 centimeters, not a dual band radio. So I was fine with just a 2-meter option. But if you want to easily be able to change or go portable with your antenna, this might be a good idea. I did entertain using coat hangers as the material for mine instead of the aluminum welding rods, and I just couldn't get them straight. I tried everything. A lot of people say put the end of the wire in a vise and then hold the other end with a pair of vise grips and then hit it with like a rubber mallet or something like that to stretch it out. I tried everything and I could not get the coat hanger straight, and not having those the radials and the elements straight drove me nuts. So I just I couldn't do it. He also said he tuned his up with the Nano VNC. I think it means VNA, and the Nano VNA is awesome. Love mine. N3 LJS commented on the same video, and he said, solder a terminal ring on the top and throw a string up in a tree and pull it up. I actually did mount mine in a tree. What I did is I took a little piece of string and I heat shrank it to the top of the element, and then that way there's no metal there that might change anything electrically. I think this is a pretty good idea, but after, I was thinking, hey, should I do that? Putting the ring terminal on top might change, well, it will. It definitely will change the length of that, so you'd have to take that into consideration for your design. But just being able to hoist that ground plane antenna up into a tree and not have it on a mast was a pretty handy, pretty helpful idea. I like it. Okay, so in my video for choosing a Nano VNA, Kevin Hutchins said, thanks for this video. He's looking at getting one of these, but with so many fakes out there. You really do have to be careful, and I cover a lot of the different versions of Nano VNA in that video, and I talk a little bit about the fakes. I also talk about places where you can buy these and then how you can potentially avoid getting a fake. What I would do is I would suggest going to rnl.com. I'm not affiliated. I'm not sponsored. I don't work with RNL. I've never spoke to anybody over there. I do order equipment and gear from RNL, and I've always been happy. And they have a pretty good connection on the Nano VNA line of legitimate Nano VNAs as well as the Tiny SA. I would direct anybody there. The Nano VNA H4 is very popular, and they don't carry that one because it's a clone. I wouldn't call it a fake, but the Nano VNA is open source, so other companies are free to use the design. I know people who have them and they love them. So recently somebody was asking me if I knew where to get one of those, and I said, my buddy has one. He got it on Amazon. Best of luck to you. Anyhow, thanks for the comment, Kevin. I really appreciate it. And White Buffalo, I didn't realize we had one of his comments in from earlier. He posted on my FT8 on the Zygo G90, and he asked if I tried using the CE19 cables that were supplied with the radio to connect cat control and digital modes. When I bought my G90, they were selling the CE19 separately. And I took a look at it, and it didn't have some of the shielding around the connectors that I typically would like. And the other thing is that all the cables had to be DIY cables. Now, I've done my own cables. I'm not entirely scared or terrified of that, but it is difficult I won't say difficult, it's time consuming to do that. When I bought the XGG comms adapter, I think is what it is, I just wanted to buy a cable that I could plug in and it would work. I didn't want to have to mess with the CE19. At the time, I had read a lot about people having problems with the CE19, so I didn't want to deal with it. In retrospect, I'm kind of wishing I had the CE19 because that way I could do digital modes with the PAX100 because it does have the DIN port pass through. So will there be one in the future of the channel? It's possible. We'll find out. J. Russ commented on the antennas for HF radio video that we did a couple weeks back. And in that, I talked a little bit about the Chameleon MCOM3. And he says he's been running the Chameleon MCOM3 for several months. QTH is in Oklahoma. He gets reasonably good coverage from coast to coast. Do have a good ground system, choke at feed point, grounded arrestor for coax, averted L configuration, vertical to approximately 24 feet. That's awesome. What I like about this antenna is it's designed, you can set it up as a permanent antenna, or it's easily packable and easily field deployable. I don't have mine up permanently. I did have it set up out back for a couple weeks. Right now I'm using an end-fed half wave that I just am giddy about. I love that antenna. But maybe I'll put this one up in a little bit of a longer, fuller term capacity, give it a try again. It's a little bit long. My backyard, or garden, as our British friends say, is smaller. And so this antenna is about 71, 77 feet, something like that. I don't remember exactly. The antenna that I have out there now is 66 feet. And it actually is a lot easier to get you wouldn't think it is, but that 5 feet makes a difference. Anyhow, thanks for the comment, Jay. And it sounds like you got a fantastic setup over there, so I'm glad to hear it. And that's going to wrap up this edition of Lid Tips. I really want to thank everybody who left a comment. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or recommendations about anything that we covered here, go ahead and post them below, and I'll do my best to try to respond. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it.